Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you today with the next session in the Alpha Wolf personal development and expansion session. So basically, what we talked about last week was really understanding how the mind works in terms of our conscious and unconscious mind, our unconscious behaviors, our emotions, and all of this. And a recurring thing with the guests that were on last week was this idea of I have achieved or overcome what I wanted to achieve or overcome, but I do not feel that achievement, that success. I do not feel the victory. The victory is empty, the victory is hollow. So, in understanding this, we understand when I feel like the victory is hollow, I've put too much emphasis on the outcome and not on the process that gets the outcome. So when I focus on this idea of being a happy, my dream person, like, my dream self, like the thing is if all of my emotion and my validation is put onto the end result, what happens is I'm not going to value or identify the process that gets to the end result. So when I get the end result, it's sort of like, now what? So if all of my validation is on after I've eaten a sandwich and I don't think or I'm not consciously aware of eating the sandwich, I'm gonna sit there and feel hungry and be like, where's my sandwich? Do you sort of get it? So what we do is we tend to, and this is through conditioning, through school, through life, through society. Think about schooling. All that mattered wasn't the semester of learning, it was the final exam. Because if you didn't pass the final exam, you didn't pass. Whereas we're not valuing the time in the classroom, the time understanding, comprehending. Like that's where this feeling of success is, because that's what we replicate in our daily life. So, becoming my ideal self is a process of figuring out what do I like in life? What don't I like in life? Who do I want to be? And it's in doing the actions that we feel when we are aware and acknowledge and show gratitude to the actions and experiences we go through in personal and self-development. That is where we feel that sense of achievement, of accomplishment, of I have become who I set out to be. So it's really important to understand this concept of self-validation and to understand the concept of validation. So validation is just, where am I looking to get acknowledgement? Where am I looking to get agreement that I am right? So we're looking to when we try to validate ourselves, what we are looking for is someone to acknowledge that yes, what I think, feel, and see is true. And when we understand that our natural tendencies, because of cultural and environmental stimuli, have led us to validate ourselves based on outside or the external world, other people. So when we understand self-validation, we just understand that it's me who validates every experience that I've had. It's me that who validates, who I am as a person. So all of that personal development we go through for the, you know, to become our ideal self. It's like I'm validating the importance, the relevance, the struggle, the overcome, the achievement. Like I'm the one validating it. It doesn't matter if the external environment even notices a change has happened. I've noticed the change has happened. And the reason for this is because we're in the internal. We're dealing with internal states of being. There can be no validation externally because no one will ever experience the internal state that is within me. I can try and articulate it, I can try and share it through expression, but it is an impossible feat to express the internal state changes or emotional shifts that I have, like because our emotions aren't linked to language. So unless we're accessing the full brain, okay, then maybe potentially I can, but it's sort of like I'm trying to describe something that is not based in reality, in terms of it is not in the physical world. I can't see it. I can feel it, I can sense it, I can sort of, so to speak, hear it. I can hear when I'm angry. I can hear when I'm sad. I can hear when, when I'm happy, but I can't, like, I don't hear what happiness is. I hear the shift in frequency of my thoughts and my words when I am happy. So we just got to understand that when we are doing internal work, it's within understanding the shifts in thought patterns, understanding the shifts in emotional states. Like that's where our validation is. If I am telling myself that I love myself, but I'm not thinking positively about myself, like I can go and validate that I've accomplished it, but I haven't. So understanding the experience is. So to validate ourselves on, for example, you know, positive talk to ourselves is every time I notice myself talking positively to myself, I acknowledge it. I validate it as being the right move or the right action or behavior that I want to have. So it's in understanding that other people can't validate me on my internal thoughts because they don't read my mind. They may validate me on my external behavior, on my external appearance, on the external image or identity that I've created for myself. And that's an important thing. We can either create an identity that is authentic to ourselves or unauthentic or inauthentic. So if we are inauthentic to ourselves, this is simply when I say I like things that I don't, when I become or try to fit a mold that I don't. So for me, being kind is something that gives me enjoyment. So it's inauthentic for me to take actions that are unkind. Now, that doesn't mean that I have to dictate who I am to everyone else's version of kind. It's that I determine what kind means to me, and then I embody that, and I am a kind person. If someone walking down the street, is a drug addict and they've got no money and they want money to go buy drugs, and they come up and ask me for money, and I say, sorry, bro, I'm all good. That could be seen as an unkind action. But to me, I'm not being unkind. Why would I support someone else's habit? So it's sort of like an understanding that kindness, that love, that anger, like all of our emotions, all of these values, all of these thoughts, these beliefs, they're determined by us. And if we act in accordance to how we have defined those actions to be, how we have defined, kindness to be, then we are authentically being the kind self of us. So it's in everything. If, for example, in naturally I feel, happy to sort of like present and promote myself to other people. So maybe I'm a very charismatic person and I enjoy talking to other people. So it's authentic for me to talk to other people. But when I start talking to other people with intentional agenda, So if I'm like, I can't say this, I can't show this aspect of myself, otherwise they'll judge me. Like the fear of judgment is what creates the inauthenticity within us because we're afraid to believe who we are is true, valuable, and real. So it's in understanding this that it's only us who define who we are. It's only us that define, that identity of self, the value that they have. How does that person speak? Do you know what I mean? Are they aggressive? Are they not aggressive? For me, being able to be soft in my spoken word is not an absence of power, of aggression. It is that I choose to stimulate my environment with flow, not with force. So, in understanding this, while others may say that, being soft spoken is a negative thing or it makes you look weaker, that's okay. Come try and fight me, and you'll realize how unsoft I am, or how that soft spokenness is just me putting out what I want into the environment. But if the environment dictates that I need to become highly aggressive and highly violent, then I can become highly aggressive and highly violent. So it's in understanding this that I'm determining in the environment what or who I want to be, how I want to speak, how I want to think. Do I want to think about violence or do I want to think about positive thoughts? Like when I'm in public, do I always want to be focused on defending myself or do I want to not care for it because I know in my own capabilities? Like, this is the thing when I validate my ability to defend myself, I cease to need to actively think about defending myself because I already know that it's like something within me. Like I already have it. Like it's okay. I'm not second guessing it because I've already said that I don't need to think about this or I don't need to think this way. So it's in understanding how to shift our perspective and how to shift and control those aspects of us through determining what and how they are. So, in determining that, for example, if I don't want to think violent thoughts, then every time I have a violent thought, I choose to shift that thought. I choose to shift it. So, like, for example, if I don't want to think negatively about myself, every time I have negative thoughts about myself, I just shift it. So, like, those thoughts, while they pop into my mind, okay, so let's say self-doubt. Every time I feel self-doubt, like I realize that, like, if I choose to allow that or believe that, I can. If I choose to change that, I also can. Like it doesn't really matter. What I believe as being true becomes true. What I believe as being me becomes me. So it's in understanding that belief and truth are interchangeable in the sense that, like, what is true to me may not be true to someone else. It's subjective, just like belief is subjective. So if I want to believe negative narratives that I've created about myself, I am free to believe negative narratives that I've created about myself. If I want to believe positive things or positive narratives that I've created within myself, like I can believe it, even if there's no evidence in the environment. And this is the power of belief, is that belief is not based in rationale. We can try and rationalize it. We can try and structure it in a way that I believe this because of this, because of this. Like in any fight or any survival situation, I just believe I am the exception and I just fight until I die. Do you know what I mean? Like I can give into the situation and say, if it's a survival situation, if I'm stuck in the wilderness, like I'm just going to choose to believe if I walk in the direction of the nearest known like community, I will be able to reach it, even if it takes me a week. Like if I run out of water, I believe I will be able to find water. That doesn't mean that I will be able to find, ideal drinking water. But if I find water, I know how to distill it. I know how to alter it in the sense that it is like whatever the environment is, whatever the challenge is, I am able to overcome it. Sorry. Just have to share a link with someone who wants to join in. Zoom.
So
Oh, true. Yeah. So have you had a busy weekend or something, like work-wise?
yeah, yeah, just personal projects. And then last night couldn't sleep. I was working on a website
Yeah.
for myself yesterday, and then got stuck. And then typical IT person just can't sleep until it's fixed. So
Yeah.
got it fixed, and then I'm like, oh, there's no point going back to bed. I've got a 8 o'clock meeting and did that, and yeah, so all
Yeah.
good. But yeah, no, I realized the time was the same. I thought it was 12, and I'm just like I said, I'm just scattered.
Yeah.
That's all. So
No, no,
yeah,
that's
I'm
all
happy,
right.
happy to dial in, because I got some value out of I think it was Friday I joined
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, today's going to be a fun one because we're going over self-validation. So the best way is, like I always say, seeing is believing, right? So, for example, when you mentioned that you already did some subconscious work for the car accident and you got some good results, it's sort of like you've already experienced it, and now it's the self-realization of the experience.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? Because, like,
yeah.
for example, in that experience, like, you should have an understanding just from that experience how malleable your conscious and unconscious mind are to overcoming anything that you deem as being a problem or that you want to change within yourself. So it's in that process of sort of going through and experiencing that and sort of because for me, a lot of this, because I had the exact same experience. So a lot of this went around in my own personal development that I wasn't valuing the actions and valuing the steps I had taken. All I was looking at was the end result, the end goal. So whenever I reached the end goal, it sort of felt empty because those feelings of success, those feelings of overcoming are the culmination of the journey. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's about becoming self-aware of that. And when we become self-aware of the journey we've taken, we see the areas where we were struggling, and then we figured out the overcome. And it's sort of like if you think about IT and systems optimization, it's sort of like we're going through and looking at each stage or segment of the journey, and we're looking at the areas where there were bottlenecks, where we got stuck there for a bit, not understanding, and then how we overcame that because that becomes a new process. for when dealing with that situation, we overcome it. So just to begin, like self-validation is just validation of oneself. So naturally, when growing up through schooling, through community or society, we're taught to validate ourselves or who we see ourselves as based on how other people respond to us and the acknowledgement that they give us. So in terms of like, if you think about like ideas, we might have this really great idea, but unless people sort of agree with us, we don't feel that it's a great idea. Do you know what I mean? And it's about
Mm.
taking it from me valuing other people's opinion about who I am over myself. And now I'm valuing my opinion about myself or my ideas above other people's. So it's just that process of instead of me going to other people to get my validation and to get them to tell me I'm doing a good job, I tell myself I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, I follow. I follow.
Yeah. So I found this was the last sort of key that I found in my own understanding of myself and all of that. And it's the foundation for personal development. So I learned personal development sort of the backwards way, where I started at affirmations and then started at motivational speeches and things like that and really conditioned my mind. But the problem was, is I felt this, or I thought this way about myself that I, loved myself, that I was valuable, that I was smart, and all this, but I never felt it. So I always had that imposter syndrome of where I wanted to be happy, but I didn't feel like I deserved happiness, or I didn't feel like, I had the right to be happy because I was going and trying to get validation externally from success, from all of that to sort of figure out or to know that I'd achieved what I was searching for. Do you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
in personal development, like understanding what I want to achieve within myself is sort of the key because it's our North Star that directs our movements. Whereas what I was doing is I was looking for other people and, thought leaders and things like that who validated what I thought before I believed it within myself as being true. So a funny thing for me is I realized how if I validate myself through someone else, the power of control over who I am is outside of my control now. So if that person should choose to say something negatively to me or, break down the relationship, I lose all control over who I am in the day.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
it's sort of like for me it came from this understanding of trying to perform and become someone who is able to perform and be unaffected by any move like anything that changes in the environment. So the other aspect to understand is belief. So beliefs, like what I believe about myself, what I believe about being that is true in the world. They are just thoughts on repeat where the synaptic pathway has become so strong that any competing information becomes difficult for our brain to do. So, like, for example, if I believe that we'll take marketing as an example, but if I believe that sort of content marketing is more effective than like advertising or direct marketing, it's sort of like for me to even try and consider thinking about it or even considering it becomes so difficult because I now have to rewire those synaptic pathways that requires more energy because they're less developed. So we just understand that our beliefs are malleable in the way that whatever I tell myself, whatever I think and feel, and I tell myself day in, day out, becomes my reality. So the only way to be a happy person is to be the only way to become a happy person is to be a happy person. So I have to be happy before I can become happy, because if I'm feeling stressed, my physiology is going to be in a different sort of state of being. So if I'm in fight or flight, happiness isn't even an emotion that, is associated with that state of being within my body. So it's just in understanding that. So if I want to be a kind person, like I can go out there and try and validate myself through other people and get other people to see me as being kind, and then I'm a kind person, or I can just take the actions within myself to be kind. So it's sort of like if I wanted to become a more kind person, I just take the actions and I am that person. So a thing about Zen is that as soon as you start walking the path, you're already walking the path. So it's this understanding of as soon as I start acting happier, I am already happier. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing to achieve. It's
Mm.
about the journey along the path of being happy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we just understand that, it's just through repetition of determining the direction I want my thoughts and emotions and feelings to go, and then really driving in and focusing in on it. So if like, and we take your journey, for example, with the car accident, it's like those small milestones where you overcame the last perceived like limitation that you had. Like it's about amplifying the meaning of them, the positive meaning, and really focusing in on the feeling that you felt as you overcame it. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yep.
And when you do that, really identify that feeling, because that's your feeling of success. That's your feeling of accomplishment. And then what we're doing is we're going through and we're really focusing in on all the positive aspects of the journey. Even the negative aspects are positive, because the negative aspects lead us to overcome. So it's sort of like we can't become physically stronger without tearing the muscles from where they used to be. So it's sort of like I can't become like emotionally stronger without going through the emotions and learning how to deal with them and sitting there and sort of being beaten up by them for a time period, because it's the realization that you'll have where it's like I had in the negative emotions is like, for example, I can feel heartbreak and I can go through heartbreak, but it's like nothing's really happening to me when I feel heartbroken. Like in my body, like it's not like someone's torn my heart out of my chest. So it's like I don't get to determine if I feel heartbroken or not, because these are responses to environmental stimuli, but I get to determine how I think and feel in the moment,
Mm.
and what it means to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the subconscious mind, that is our emotions, that is feeling, only understands meaning in the context of why it's happening. So when we're thinking about, with the recovery from the car crash, it's like those emotions I was feeling at the points where I had overcome. Why was I feeling that? Do you know what I mean? Because that meaning and that memory that'll be associated to that meaning is what we're reprogramming to. So it might be like, I felt empowered, you know, like the meaning was that I felt empowered again. The meaning might have been that I felt that, I had achieved something that I'd set out that I didn't think I could achieve. So like, for example, like my greatest moment when I walked across country, because that was sort of a culmination of me sort of putting this all to the test within myself, was
Mm.
overcoming some of my limitations. And, like the most empowering moment was when I walked the Dawes Range and I made it up the major climb. And the thing I realized the whole way up was every challenging bit of terrain that I'd walked before was preparing me for this incrementally. So instead of me looking at it like the last 4 days I've walked through up and down hilly terrain and I'm exhausted and all of that, like we can see what we go through is something that adds value to us or something that takes away from us in terms of like, this was difficult, it took this amount of energy, or we can see it as this was building up my muscles. So the funny thing, what I realized as I was walking up is it was more exhausting to do the other hills because my muscles hadn't developed within my legs. So
Hmm.
they were getting tired very easy and all of that. And as I was walking up, I realized it wasn't as difficult because I'd gone through those challenges. So when we see negative experiences or situations that we go through, like we can see them as they're building us to become more resilient to this in the future or to understand it at a deeper level. So it's sort of like, if you want, we can go through sort of what you were learning, like when you were going through that recovery after the car accident, and just talk through that journey if you like.
There wasn't much of a journey immediately afterwards. It was
Hmm.
a lot of painkillers, return back to work
Yep.
until I was told by my GP, if you do not go home and rest and recover, you will be put in hospital.
Yep.
So I took 6 months off work. So, and then during that time, I'm fighting THC to get treatment qualification,
Hmm.
um, and so forth. So it wasn't. I don't know what the time frame was, but it was
Yeah.
more than 12 months afterwards before I was getting proper treatment.
Yeah.
I know I was getting some physio a few months after the accident, but that was limiting in pain relief, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And then just the journey and the challenges of getting the right surgeons, the right
Yeah.
specialists, and having to fight TSC and the bureaucracy the whole way through,
Hmm.
and arguing with my doctors and saying, well, you keep giving me painkillers. That's not what I need. I need some sort of a treatment that's going to alleviate the
Mm.
pain. I said, otherwise, I'll just get addicted to painkillers again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and look, it's 10 years on, I'm still doing exercises, rehab,
Yeah.
still getting treatments, and I'll likely be getting treatments for the rest of my life. So
Mm.
there is no what some people would say a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just a matter of maintenance.
Yeah.
And I do what I can, but I've got similar aspirations to yourself
Yeah.
regarding mountaineering and the hiking and so forth. Is
Yeah.
I used to be in the army, used to be
Yeah.
really fit, used to hike and bushwalk and all that good stuff,
Hmm.
and wanting to get back to that, not just in Australia, but travel around
Yeah.
the world, do the non-touristy destinations, the hiking and so forth. So I'm trying to build strength up
Hmm.
um, after such a long period of no cardiovascular because I physically couldn't due to pain.
Yeah.
So similar journey to you actually, and that's
Mm.
probably why we're talking again is that
Yeah. Yeah.
it's I have the aspirations to go and do the Kosciuszko and the
Hmm.
Mount Fuji and the Mount
Hmm.
Kilimanjaro and
Oh man, that'd be beautiful.
all that sort of stuff. That's what I want to do now.
Mm.
It's so that they're my personal goals. Obviously,
Yeah.
I've got work, career, study, etc., which I do as well. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in my own time, it's gym at home and
Hmm.
rehab. So just trying to build strength, and it takes time, and it's not
Yeah.
every day. It's some days you just don't have. Um, I'm in too much pain to do anything, so I just
Yeah.
have to relax, rest. And other
Yeah.
days, I'm in the gym for 2 hours.
Have you
So,
ever heard of a guy named Kerwin Ray?
no.
Oh, okay. He's an Australian. He was a business coach and sort of sales coach. And he had a pretty similar story to you, where he'd gone through um, like the army and sort
Yep,
of had some injuries in the army and
yep,
sort of had been fighting against like the pain and all of that. And it's like, see, there's two sort of methodologies when coming back from pain or dealing with pain. And his was very similar to David Goggins, where
yep,
it's sort of like you push through the pain and um, keep pushing your body. But the downside is that recently he passed, Kerwin Ray.
yep.
So that was always my thought when I would listen to him or listen to David Goggins, is that you can push yourself to 100% all of the time, but you're sort of burning the candle at both ends. So that's one thing, you don't want to sort of ruin your body and ruin your future um, ability to, go and do things and enjoy it. Because, like, for example, if you destroy your knees trying to force yourself to, do things that
Yeah,
you haven't done,
yeah.
then for the next 30 years, you won't be able to do it. So
Mm,
I have a slightly different sort of theory to both of them, and that's that, like, do what's comfortable and sort of just push yourself comfortably.
yeah.
So like I have asthma. I don't enjoy running. So I can run, and like I make myself run, but it's like,
Mm,
unlike David Goggins, like I don't run every day. I just walk every day.
yep.
So it's sort of like stripping it back to, if I can only bicep curl 1 kilo at the gym, then
Mm,
it's 1 kilo.
yeah,
So it's sort of like that removing of the ego of where I need to be or where I should be. And it's sort of like, we're here now. How can we move forward towards achieving, these goals? So sort of like, before I'd planned for the walk, I just sort of like, it scared me that much. Sort of like how you might think about these sort of treks that you really want to do, is that I really, really want to do it, but I don't think I can. I don't think I'm ready. I think I need all of this other stuff.
mm,
And at a certain point, I realized is you just have to do. So we can achieve things by planning, thinking, stressing, worrying our way there, or we can achieve things by just doing it and figuring it out as we go. So a thing I did was, I made the decision that yes, I'm going to walk, and then I started taking actions towards it, buying the gear and all of that. And then immediately I just started doing walks. So I started at
mm,
like 5 kilometers a day, moved up to
yep,
10, 20, 30, 40. And then after that, moved into doing pack marches
yep.
with 5 kilos, 10 kilos, and upwards. And I find that the incremental increases are the easiest way to sustain it.
Mm-hmm,
So it's sort of like, for example, let's say you wanted to do Mount Kilimanjaro next year. It's sort of like, if we break that into a goal, we just take the length of the track of Mount Kilimanjaro, and
mm,
then we start walking that every day or every couple of days whenever we can. And, after 2, 3, 4 months, then we introduce like varying terrains. So start on the flat, then introduce the varying terrains, move it up. With recovery, a really easy way might be doing it in the pool, because the
mm,
pool assists with the body weight. So it takes the pressure off the knees and all of that, and sort of conditions us to where I might be able to do the full amount on in the pool, but doing it walking on land, I might get 3 or 4K in, and then knee pain starts really,
yeah,
really bad. So like, because I've got a lot of pain from, I used to do like downhill longboarding and like adventure sports and things like that. So like I
yep,
tore both my Achilles tendons, knee pain and things like that. And then when I was younger, when I was doing like, bodybuilding and things like that, I didn't understand how the muscles develop. So I overdeveloped my leg muscles, but underdeveloped the supporting muscles to my knees.
Hmm.
So I get a lot of pain in the knees. So I realized that if I do body weight, like where I just do walking and then add in weight on top of my current body weight, I'm using all the muscle groupings that are needed that I want to repair and recover. So it's usually just making it as easy as possible. But the other thing is that like the goal is let's take Mount Kilimanjaro and just say that's the goal for next year. So it's sort of like that's the goal for next year. Every day we wake up, it's like how do I achieve this goal? And we train or prepare and attempt it. And it doesn't matter on the day if we achieve it or not. It's sort of like if day in, day out, I walk after a month, after 2 months, it's going to be much easier for me to
Mm.
achieve the full like trek if it's like 10, 15 Ks or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just in understanding that like in the day it doesn't matter, but if I take consistent action at a certain point in time, it's usually for me about 3 months. So after 3 months, I become accustomed and it becomes a habit for me to take that action. And then I start to get excited about it and I start to become more obsessive about it and enjoy it. So it's sort of like we're trying to, like in Atomic Habits, we're trying to wait out that duration between not starting and creating a new habit. And it's like if every day, so like for example, you mentioned like every day if the pain isn't too bad, you're able to work out and all of that.
Mm.
That's sort of where I agree with David Goggins a fair bit, is that at a certain point, like not on day one, usually for me it's around 2 to 3 months. So I call it at the gym when I work out. So when I
Mhm.
take a long break from lifting weights, I have to start back at the light weights. So
Yeah.
I call it the bitch Olympics,
Yeah.
where for the first, but it has two meanings, but for the first three weeks, like if I want to tap out and say I'm tired, I don't really feel like this, I'm not in the mood for this, I allow myself to tap out. But there's always a condition after 3 weeks, those excuses aren't allowed anymore because
Mm.
I've built up the stamina. So the other meaning of it is like we can take easy exercises and activities and do them until they make us feel like a bitch. So you get 1 kilo weight and you just keep doing bicep curls until lifting that 1 kilo weight becomes the most difficult thing for you to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's sort of like it's that mentality of we have to be like the soft side of us in understanding that, I don't want to damage myself for the future. But there's also this other aspect where we can't become who we want to be, physically, mentally, or emotionally without pushing ourselves past what we feel as being comfort. So it's sort of like with myself, like during the walk, like every day my legs felt like they'd been torn
Yeah.
because I did like I think I had maybe 10 days off over 30 days. So it was sort of like it was a fair bit, but there were segments of 3 to 5 days where I had to walk day after day with only
Yeah.
minimal rest.
Yeah.
So, like on those days, I was in immense pain beginning to begin with. Like I'd wake up and my calves were so tired, all my muscles were like walking was so painful. But the thing was is that I realized at a certain point in time, if you don't acknowledge pain, you just stop registering it. So like if I focus on what is painful, I amplify the pain I'm feeling. If I don't focus on what is painful, then it sort of diminishes.
Hmm.
So it's in understanding this that like we don't want to be pushing ourselves to injury, but we also want to push ourselves past pain.
Mm.
So sort of taking responsible, measured actions, like for example, not loading up on weights. Like if we load up on weights and push ourselves, then we're going to go to failure. But with body weight, it's sort of like it's almost impossible for us to hurt ourselves under body weight without like doing something extreme.
Mm.
So it's sort of like, how can you incrementally push yourself past your current perceived limitations of today in terms of pain tolerance and all of that, and how do you identify when is a time that the pain may be, you know, it's not as bad as it is? When are the times where the pain's an indicator to avoid um, sort of like prior damage? So that's the whole point of the sensation of pain, is so that we avoid damaging that area of
Mm.
the body. But it's sort of like, so the way I like to put it is you have joint and bone pain, and then you have muscular pain. So if it's muscular pain, warming up the muscle, stretching, and all of that will do it. But also, it's sort of like it will repair itself. So like the tendons are the same as well, where they will repair themselves. So it's
Mm.
sort of like they're designed to tear and repair themselves, whereas our bones aren't really designed to break and repair themselves. Like they are, because like for example, have you ever heard of like kung fu and all of that, like the
Yeah, yeah,
Shaolin monks?
yeah.
So so they have their different iron forms of martial arts. Like you might have Iron Fist, and that's where they literally just punch a tree or a bucket of rocks, because every time you punch the bucket of rocks, well, one, you're experiencing the pain. So like the more you experience that level of pain, the more accustomed you become to that level of pain. So that's sort of what David Goggins talks about, is the
Mm.
more you become accustomed to pushing yourself beyond your limits, beyond your pain thresholds, the more it becomes who you are. But the downside is like David Goggins runs on broken legs. You know what I mean? David
Mm.
Goggins has pushed himself that much that he has, knee problems,
Yeah,
joint problems. So it's sort of like that's where I change a little bit to, it's like do what feels comfortable, because the more you do, the more will feel comfortable.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of like changing that association from like thinking about pain in terms of the pain I'm feeling in the moment, to the associating the pain to the growth. So like for example, when I push myself in the walk through walking through immense pain in my legs, like I'm building up my own pain threshold. I'm building up my own tolerance to pain. So when I shift it from the physical sensation of pain to like sort of like the emotional sensation of being able to remain calm while in pain, being able to keep pushing and stay motivated while in pain. Because it was easy for me to say, oh, I'm in pain, I don't think I should do this, or I need to rest more. And at certain points, like the only reason I didn't take more rest days is because there was areas where there was nowhere to rest.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I'd be on the side of the road. So it's sort of like I put myself into situations where it isn't like there isn't an option but to keep moving forward. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of
Yeah,
like if you want to take the beach, you burn the boats.
yeah,
Because if forward becomes the only way out, forward is all we can do. So it's sort of like with your goal, so to speak, what we do is we shift our language from, I want to do this to I am going to do this.
mm.
Do you know what I mean? And we start artificially making forward as the only thing, and then we move forward at whatever pace we can. So it's sort of like we don't have to keep moving forward. And it's sort of, we're validating ourselves as like I am doing enough. Because that's how we can get back to that relaxed state of feeling like we're progressing and moving towards goals without having to sort of become obsessive and run a marathon, so to speak, trying to get there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sort of, how do you find yourself with the pain?
The pain is either it's mostly spinal. So
Hmm.
I've got a fused neck, titanium plates in my
Yeah.
neck. I've got three hemorrhage discs in my lower back. So
Yeah.
when I say I can't do the gym, it means that generally cardio is off the
Mm.
cards. And whilst I do have weight sets, I do
Mm.
need to take my rest days as well.
Yeah.
And the rest days aren't a cop out at all. It's a matter of,
Nah.
well, it's a matter of some days I'll train till I fail, and
Hmm.
then other days I'll just do like a recovery where I'm just going to go, okay, I'm only going to do half the reps, but I'm going to
Yeah.
do a more focus on. I've got a room set up with a yoga mat. I'll do some more
Hmm.
stretching. So I will, pardon me, I will adjust my activities depending on the limitation of the pain,
Yeah.
but rotate around. Am I going to do bench press, dumbbells? Am I going to do my yoga mat? Am I going to do push-ups?
Yeah.
And I always find something to do, and I'm always trying to trigger some muscle somewhere in my body,
Yeah.
so that I'm being active but trying to build full body strength.
Hmm.
And it's a slow process, and there's
Hmm.
no set time frame for me to do it
No.
because I'm my body injuries are different from everyone else's. But
Yeah.
um, honestly, the inability to do the cardio. I've got a treadmill. I've got a beautiful creek out in my estate.
Yeah.
And I take my dog for a walk, or I put him on the treadmill if I can't walk him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I'd like to be able to do more cardio.
What
Limiting
do you find limiting with cardio?
everything from the lower back down is
Yeah.
just will seize up.
Yeah.
And I'm taking some over-the-counter painkillers at the moment,
Mm.
which are kind of helping.
Yeah.
But what I'm really focusing on is really getting the flexibility back from the mid back down to the
Hmm.
knees
Hmm.
and everything in between. And I've got a room set up here for that,
Yeah.
whereby I've got I don't know what you call it. I've got multiple exercise pieces of equipment,
Yeah.
and I'll do my stretches, I'll do my yoga and so
How do you
forth.
how do you find the stretches go with the lower back and all of that?
They're pretty good. I'm
Mm.
getting more flexibility the more I
Hmm.
do it.
Yeah.
It's obviously there's a look, there it will be a little bit of pain, but it's not as severe as walking 5Ks.
Yeah.
No, it is stretching it out. And I'm getting more flexibility. I'm holding my poses for longer. I
Mm.
am seeing improvements.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm not
See, because that's the thing. It's
yeah,
sort of you are pushing the muscle sort of in endurance and in failure when you're stretching, but you just don't have that concussive force of the like walking and all of
walking
that.
motion. Yeah.
Yeah, so like for example, I can't remember who it is, but there's a fella over in America who did up a sort of a yoga program for recovering for veterans over there.
Hmm.
And he found that the yoga and the stretching really, really helps because it's low impact on the body, but it allows you to one, stay in shape so that you're
Yeah.
not putting on excess weight and adding to the pressure points, but it also helps strengthen all the muscles. Like,
Yeah.
for example, have you done a plank before?
Yeah, no, I do
Yeah.
planks. I've got a
See,
what do you
like
call
doing a plank, like that is more exhausting after a minute or two than running. Do you know what I
it?
mean? Like
Yeah.
all of your muscles are in that state of being pushed. So think of it instead of in terms of because cardiovascular is just breathing exercises.
Mm.
So like for example, I can sit here and I can stimulate or imitate like the breathing of running, and I will have the same physiological response. So, for example, with Wim Hof is if you do his breathing exercises, you're able to increase lung capacity. So you don't sort of to be able to walk, like let's say 10 kilometers was your goal,
Yeah.
you don't have to do it in the physical sense of going out there and walking every day, but you can do it in the sense of sort of like doing the muscle development to develop your muscles to be able to physically do it, and then doing the breathing exercises to be able to get your anaerobic or your breathe, no, aerobic
Yeah.
system up to scratch. So think about it like all the muscles. So a funny thing is they've found is that when we shallow breathe through our mouth, so when we breathe in and out through our mouth, we're only using the muscles in our chest. When we breathe in to our solar plex through our nasal passage in our nose, like we're using all the different muscles. So deep nasal breathing builds those muscles in your core. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
increase your lung capacity. So those two breathing exercises I told you about, you can do them. And I found that through doing breathing exercises while doing it. So like when you're doing like bicep curls, for example,
Yeah.
it's just 2 seconds in from the nose, 1 second out, 2 seconds
Yeah.
in, 1 second out while you're doing it, because you're forcing yourself to do that core sort of movement, but you're sort of priming, so you're keeping a lot more oxygenated. So it's sort of like it lowers the impact felt by the exercise in terms of exhaustion. So it's sort of like finding different breathing exercises that you can do that really stimulate the muscle development are quite good.
Yeah.
So like, have you ever tried Wim Hof's breathing exercise? You know, where it's you breathe deep in, then you breathe out, then you breathe deep in, then you breathe out, and you do that about 30 or 40 times, and then you exhale fully and you sort of sit without breath.
No, I've never done it.
Oh, okay. It's really good because it's forcing you to do that breathing exercise, but also breathing exercises are the link in the brain to some of our biochemical responses, like adrenaline and things like that.
Yeah.
So, like for example, what I've found is that like when in times of I've tried this with cold climates, or not cold climates, but times where it's like 12 degrees outside and raining and I'm soaking wet and freezing,
Hmm.
and it's sort of like doing breathing exercises to generate warmth. So it's a fun thing that you can play around with that really can have impact on your condition in the environment. So, like for example, if you're in an environment where hypothermia is a present threat, like breathing exercises can generate enough movement in the body to generate heat. But also, we can do targeted breathing exercises at pain reduction and things like that. So, like in childbirth, they say you do, I think it's three inhales and then one deep exhale.
Hmm.
Like the rhythm in the breath alters the response the body has. So it's sort of like when you're in immense pain, where you can't like sort of function with that pain, it's sort of like imitate that breath work, and you can stimulate the responses from the body in terms of like pain response. But I'm not exactly sure on this aspect. This is just an aspect I'm currently looking into
Yeah.
because it's really, really interesting that our brains are designed in a way, and our bodies are designed to be able to regenerate and rejuvenate anything. It's sort of accessing its ability to do it. So you might find through meditating on pain, so like in times where you feel immense pain, that's where you sort of just meditate and sort of go into that experience. But I've heard, anything to do with like bulged discs or anything like that, or ruptured discs, or anything to do with the neck, that's talking about like high pain.
Mm,
Like it's very intense pain. So it's sort of like that can be one process you go down in terms of dealing and managing with pain. Like I've only dealt with sort of like situational pain where it's acute. So I think that's the word, acute, where it's not for a long duration.
mm,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How do you find that with your pain management?
Pain management, long story short, I'm taking over-the-counter painkillers as
Hmm.
needed now,
Hmm.
as opposed to every derivative of painkiller known to man,
Yeah.
um, which I was previously on.
Yeah.
Um, don't take muscle relaxants. I do the stretching, I do the yoga,
Yeah.
and instead now. And I mean, it's certainly a lot better, but
Hmm.
like last night had a chronic migraine,
Yeah.
and then I just started working. 'Cause I couldn't sleep with the migraine, so I just got up and started working.
Yeah.
A doctor told me years ago, she said, before you're getting your Botox treatments for your migraines, try drinking espresso,
Yeah.
to thin the blood to alleviate the pressure in your
Yeah.
brain for the migraine. So I
Yeah.
got up at 2 a.m. this morning. I'm eating cheese. I'm drinking coffee, and 2:30 I'm recoding my website again. So um, it's I'd say for me it's manageable. It's certainly disruptive.
Hmm.
As in that's not a normal cycle to for me to be in. Generally,
Yeah.
I don't get migraines anymore. I get the treatment to treat them, and I'll get headaches from time to
Yeah.
time. And a headache can be brought on by heat stress or normal
Mm.
stress or dehydration or
Mm.
multitude of factors. But migraines very rarely. And migraines used to be absolutely debilitating.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, the fact that I just kept working last night means that I can work through them.
Hmm.
I did take some
And it's sort of in understanding just what you said there, how they used to be debilitating
mm,
and now they're, you know what I mean? So it's an understanding that like how you phrase that determines that these migraines are never going to be as bad as how they were. Do you
no,
know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's sort of like in understanding that, we just understand how we can trigger the sort of perception of what we are experiencing. So, like, for example, in my walk, every mountain range I did after doors range, I said was effortless.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? But in truth, they were all as exhausting as the same. It's just on the first one, I had set the exhaustion level so high that everything less than that was no drama. So it's in understanding that about the pain. And this is sort of one of my personal theories is that when I'm in pain, I try to amplify that pain to the top and get comfortable with the amplified pain. So it's sort of
mm,
like if you have like let's say you did a chest day, a really big chest day, and your chest is torn and it's exhausted. It's like the next day we go in and we pump out an even bigger day. Do you know what I mean? We set the
yeah,
tempo and push it past, and then nothing will be worse than that second day doing chest. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
it's sort of like setting those markers of like what we deem as being able to tolerate. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So it's sort of pain is one of those funny things because it has like physiological responses and it's real. If I cut myself, the
yeah,
pain is real, but it's also the interpretation of that pain. So like how I view the pain I'm going through determines the pain I feel. So it's sort of like in understanding that, we're just understanding that with my mind, like when I'm feeling pain, it's real, but I can also tell myself self a story that that's nothing. I've been through worse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
or I can disassociate. So it's sort of like in combat, like for example, you take World War II, people got shot and they didn't even realize they'd been shot. Do
Mm.
you know what I mean? Until they were like sort of out of breath or something like that, or feeling like exhausted. So it's sort of like in understanding that where focus goes, attention flows. So if I focus on, like for example, you said the migraine last night, it's like that'll be amplified. So if you just laid in bed and you sat there and you were like, go away, migraine, go away, like the pain's immense.
Mm.
But you had actions to move forward with. So first you took an espresso, which in logical sense, like it thins the blood.
Mm.
Like a migraine is flowing of the blood that is, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not
Yeah.
not moving. And then it's like we distract ourselves or shift our focus to the work. Do you know what I mean? And at a certain point in time, the migraine goes away.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't know when it's going to go away, but it goes away. So if we know that consciously now, it's like every time I'm in pain, at a certain point in time, if I take measures to deal with it, and then I just keep moving forward, the pain goes away. And that's what I realized is on the days when I was walking where I felt the most exhausted, 10, 15, 20 minutes into the walk, it just felt like a normal day
Mm.
because I'd warmed up my muscles and all of that, and I'd experienced the pain. And it's sort of like that's one of the things about pain is it's sort of like we don't have to fix the problem, so to speak. All we have to do is make sure we're not amplifying the problem. So like for example, with a migraine, if you had a migraine because you were dehydrated and then you had an espresso, it
Mm.
would counteract it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know I'm hydrated. This will benefit it, and then I can just progress through. So it's in understanding how to treat and deal with the symptoms that we're feeling because the migraine is a symptom of whatever may be happening. So lack of blood flow, or it could be from, lighting and things like that, or visual sensitivity.
Mm.
But like, for example, like, if you're laying there trying to sleep and you have a migraine, it's not from bright lights
No.
because your eyes are closed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like when we think about the physical aspect of this goal to climb these mountains and to get back into that lifestyle, it's sort of like identifying the different pains that we're going to feel, how we deal with them, how we treat them. Sort of like you would have from the military. It's sort of like take for example first aid. Like if we're going out on an operation and you get shot, what's the procedure for first aid? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like if it's light wounding, it's sort of like we patch it up and we keep moving forward. If
Yeah.
it's critical, then we have to deal with it. So if we think about your pain in that aspect, like for example, if I have pain within the discs or the spine, it's sort of like it's very important that I pay attention. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That can lead to serious further damage. If it's pain in the muscle, it's sort of like identifying where that pain's coming from and how that pain came, and then moving forward from it. Because, like for example, if we take Mount Kilimanjaro, how long of a walk and elevation would that be?
I honestly don't know. I haven't looked at the duration yet because I
Yeah,
was going to try and do regional or rural Japan over Christmas this year.
yeah.
With then plans to go do Papua New Guinea probably next year,
Oh,
Kokoda Trail. And if
yeah.
I can do Kokoda, and then that's and then I haven't explored what's available in Australia anymore because I know
Mm,
I've hiked a lot of mountains in Australia, but it was a long time ago. But
mm,
it's also about when can I get time off? When is it seasonally
mm,
appropriate? So it's not necessarily my choice when I can go.
Mm.
It's also when is open season, when is it safe
Yeah.
to travel,
Yeah.
when can I get time off work? So
Mm.
I've got constraints which I need to abide by. But having said that, then I'll just go, well, there's no set priority into which sequence I need to walk them in.
No.
It's just a matter of, well, if I can't do something because I've got a work function on, then I'll look
Mm.
for something else during another different time.
Yeah.
Uh, I just take it from there. So yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
looked at the distances. I've just been on Facebook. It keeps showing me these adventure travels. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
tag. And yeah, Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Kosciuszko and
Yeah.
there's just
Mount
different stuff. And
Fuji.
I'm just looking at it. I'm going goals. These are just
Yeah.
goals.
So,
Um,
like, just what you said with Kokoda, I've always wanted to do Kokoda as well. And you think about it back to World War II, like men walk that trail weeks without food, low water, with injuries,
yeah,
with rashes. It's sort of like that perspective sort of reset of, and that's sort of what pushes me and always pushes me is because like no matter in anything in life, like, and I put it back to the diggers in Kokoda, I will never experience the, you know, the trials and tribulations that they experienced in fighting that war in that terrain.
yeah,
So it's in really understanding that like no matter how bad my life gets, it's never going to be as bad as what they had to endure, you know, defending that trail. So
mm,
it's really good in being able to reset us back to being able to push through that pain. Like these weren't, career soldiers, trained soldiers. These were the reservists that
yeah,
were just made up of the country blokes. So we see it time and time again where when forward is the only option, like we go forward. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So it's sort of like in what you want to do in terms of, the travel aspirations and getting back into it, it's sort of like make forward the only option. And the way I do this is by making a decision and just committing 180% to it.
yeah,
And just that becomes the only way, even if it leads to my demise. So like, for example, on the walk, I I had 20 liters of water. So like if I got stuck in a place where you know, I couldn't get to a new fresh water source
mm,
without, using it up my water, like I had to just keep going.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I could have, asked someone to stop and gotten a lift and all of that. But the way I saw it is if I got 20 liters of water and I got to travel 100 Ks to get to the next water source, like I don't really have a choice to go, oh, I only feel like doing 80.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So like as soon as we set off, it's like giving up, we just remove it as an option. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, for example, you might decide on Japan that, I'm actually going to go and I'm going to do some of these hikes. And then in doing the hikes, you might get into, some of the worst pain that you've ever experienced because
yeah,
there might be uneven terrain. There might be, do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like, I accept that I might be in pain and have to push through pain for the next, let's say, week of the holiday.
yeah,
But it's like, what does that experience mean? And how do we make that experience more valuable than like what we have to endure to get through it?
mm,
So it's like for the diggers in Kokoda and things like that, it was like forward or death.
yeah,
Like forward became pretty easy because death's pretty final. So, for them, it's exhausting. For them, it's cold, it's wet, you got rashes, but it's like, it's better than being dead.
yeah, of
So it's
course.
sort of like, it doesn't have to be that level of extreme, but it's sort of like we make, instead of it being that we're moving away from what we fear, it's that we're moving towards what we dream of and what we want, and we're amplifying it. So it's sort of like when you're exercising, like think about and visualize like and understand why you're exercising. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm not exercising to be healthy. I'm exercising to be able to live the life I want to live.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And then it's sort of like it makes it easier for us to move towards it because it's sort of like it's we're over like creating and sort of like expanded positive feeling for the smallest actions that we take. Like every small action is leading. So like every rep is leading to that goal. Every walk. And we just focus on the goal so that when we're pushing away the pain, it's not like we're using sort of like negativity or like, for example, I don't want to be unhealthy. I don't want to be in pain. It's like, no, I want to go and do this. So we're trying to inspire and motivate ourselves. And it's sort of about creating the narratives and sort of like this is where belief is so um, sort of not based in reality, is that we can create like lifting a weight, walking 1 kilometer as being a life-changing milestone. Do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
about over creating the joy that you feel and then associating that joy you feel with what you want. So it's sort of like when we exercise and we feel healthy and we feel like we're getting our strength back, it's like we're associating those feelings to that lifestyle, to that activity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sort of how we, because all you need is momentum. So
Yeah.
it's just measuring momentum towards the goal. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of
Yeah.
like we're not trying to achieve the goal, but we're trying to build up so much momentum that we just do the goal. Because if, for example, if your goal was just to, let's say, hike Mount Fuji, it's
Mm,
sort of like when you've hiked Mount Fuji, then what? Do you know
yeah.
what I mean?
That's the thing. I looked into that,
Hmm.
and you can do it in a day, but they suggest you do it in 2 days,
Hmm.
and it's only open, I think, 4 or 5 months of the year to the summit,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
which means I wouldn't be doing it at Christmas.
No.
I'll probably be doing it mid next year, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
definitely.
but it's like, well, let's start with a small gradient or a small distance
Hmm.
as a goal,
Hmm.
and then sort of, like I said, circulate the travel destination so
Oh,
that
yeah. Whatever. It's sort of
easy
like
to
the
half.
destination isn't what matters, it's the experience that you're going to have
Yeah.
while doing it. So it's sort of like the destination's malleable and it can be anything, but it's sort of like, and that's a really important thing to understand, is that like I was saying with the goal, is that the goal's not important, but it's who you become in achieving the goal. Do you
Mm,
know what I mean? It's that lifestyle.
yeah.
So like it's sort of like taking action towards any of the destinations, like you're already walking that path of living that life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's sort of like acknowledging that and replaying that to yourself so that you feel like you are that person, so that you feel like you are living that life, so that you can feel good about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's sort of like it's just in focusing on like in the moment when I'm taking action towards my goal, amplifying those positive feelings, even if I don't like, for example, um, like I created a process to biochemically alter your state of mind in terms of like to be able to create happiness and joy within any moment. So a thing about joy and happiness is they're not based in logic. They're ridiculous.
Mm,
So, like that aspect of our emotion isn't based in the logical aspect. So, to be joyful, we can't be serious.
mm,
So, to joyfully go after what we want in life, We can't be serious about it. We have to have a loose plan and understanding of how we're going to do it, but we just have to do it and sort of give in to the ridiculous aspects or nature. So the process I created was in altering your mindset if you're stressed or anything like that, and being able to shift it into being in a joyful state. And the process is that it's talking with trees. So you go up to a tree and you grab its leaf and you caress the leaf like you're caressing the face of the person you love.
Mm.
And the key is we are engaging in the behavior that's associated with the emotions and feelings that we want to have. So, and then we tell the tree, I love you, thank you. And in the moment that you do this, we realize we're talking to a tree.
Mm.
While it is a form of consciousness, it can't consciously talk to me.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's in that state, but what we're doing is we're reenacting and embodying that experience that we want to have. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of like in each of the moments, or the actions building up to building yourself back up and getting through like the rehab, it's sort of like associating that experience or that action to the emotion that you want to feel.
Yeah.
So, like if you want to, for example, like when I work out, it's like this is the place I want to be. I don't want to be anywhere else. Like I'm not working out to lift weights. I'm working out because I enjoy lifting weights.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's in that association that when I go towards doing that activity, now I have a positive emotion. I start to feel happier. I lighten up. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So then we take it a step further, and then it's like in those feelings, those negative feelings of the pain when you're pushing through and all of this, like it's in re-ingraining. This is exactly where I want to be, because the pain's never going to go away in the context of, you know, it's always going to be painful one way or another to do what you want to do, to live how you want to live.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like if we take pain out of the equation of being something that alters our decision making, it's sort of like now we're left with the other things. So, like, for example, on my walk across country, I just had a swag tent,
Yep.
a thin sheet and a blow up mattress. My whole point to it was to do it similar to like a military march where you sort of just camp out and stuff like that
Yeah.
and you march for a certain amount of hours a day. But comfort was not in my decision making. So it was uncomfortable as hell. Like, the canvas sweats, condensates, you wake up wet every day. Like,
Yeah.
comfort was not in my equation for it being good or bad. I
Mm.
just accepted this entire time that I'm camping outside, the 38 days, I'm not going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of like in removing either pain or comfort levels from the activities that you do and then just focusing in on those activities. So it's sort of like when you go out to walk some of these smaller gradients, it's sort of like you focus on the walking of the gradient, the experience, the nature, like that's where the focus is, not on the pain or how I feel. Because we don't like, because if we go out there and we only focus on, like, for example, if I focused on my comfort during my walk, like I would have been miserable all day, every day. So it's sort of like we just take what we can't control out of the equation of us determining if we're enjoying this or not. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I get it. I do. I do get it.
yeah. And then it's just simply taking actions towards it.
Mm.
So, like manifesting, if you ever wanted to know, I did a lot of study on manifesting and trying to understand the secrets of being able to manifest whatever you want. And it's pretty funny, but basically, there are three aspects of manifesting. There's conscious thought. So I have to create what, like, take for example, a website. I can't just create a website without seeing it first in my
Mm.
mind because I have to put everything together. And it's sort of like we create the structure or the understanding of what we want in our mind. And then I have to believe it as if I've already achieved it or already had it. Like I have to feel it. So it's sort of like, if you think about it like this, to manifest your goal of being able to easily walk, let's say, Mount Fuji, I
Mm.
have to see myself walking Mount Fuji. I have to believe that I'm able to do it, you know, for example, either pain-free or, enjoying it.
Yeah.
And then it's like the third aspect, the secret aspect is action. I have to take action towards it. I don't need anything other than being able to see what I want, believe that I can have it, and then take action towards it. So it's sort of like, if we understand that, it's like whatever I want to choose for that to be. So do I want to travel, let's say the world and get out into adventure hiking and adventure trekking? Do I want to do that painfully or painlessly?
Mm.
And then it's sort of like I mentioned, we take pain out of the equation. So whatever pain I feel, I get to determine if I feel it or not. Like I
Yeah.
don't get to determine physically if I feel it or not, but I get to determine mentally if I acknowledge it or not. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's sort of like, for example, like the walk I did was physically like one of the most exhausting things I did. But I told myself every day that it was effortless. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can be at 100% exertion and still think that it's effortless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I switched around from exertion, meaning that I'm giving everything I have, to exertion just meaning like, I'm walking. Do you know what I mean? Because I wasn't having to walk off country or, cross country. I wasn't
Mm.
having to walk, you know, and climb up cliffs and all of that. So it's
Yeah.
that perception or perspective shift. So like for example, I use the diggers um in Kokoda as one of my biggest perceptions because like anything I experience, like even for example on my walk, like I had 30 days food. I had 20 liters of water. Like they didn't have that.
No.
You know what I mean? Like I'm in luxury. So even though like I might be in physical pain, even though I might be in this, like I'm not really doing it tough. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like the weather in Kokoda was jungle rain and monsoons and things like that. It's sort of like another funny thing is like when I had to walk through rainstorms, so if it was sunny, at least it's not raining.
Yeah.
If I'm getting poured upon, at least it's not hot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like finding a reason to always be able to put the perspective back. So like if I was in pain, I'd be like, but at least I'm building muscle. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
finding a reason to reassert that negative experience or that negative situation into one where it's like I just choose to see it as being positive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I do. I do.
Yeah.
My phone's blowing up and we've
Yeah,
gone over
yeah.
the hour. So I've got to return some of these calls, people trying to get a hold of me.
No, that's all
Um,
right.
so no, thank you again. Enjoying these sessions. I will try and make it in for tomorrow. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what people are asking of me on my phone at the moment. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
no, now
no.
I've got the time and the link.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's easier for me. Yeah. But I'm
Yeah,
enjoying it.
easy.
Yeah, enjoying it.
Awesome. You
Excellent.
enjoy your
Thanks.
day
All right. You
and
too. Thank you.
no worries. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.